Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like with the cat with the laser pointer, it's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building and now you're leading it over to the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. It's Friday. We made it through another week. This one turned out to be significantly better than the last. It was a rough, man. It was a rough go last week, man. But joined this morning by Chris Paul. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. Good to see you. Another week completed.
Yeah, last week and part of the week before was pretty crappy. And I think, going back on this week thus far, we had a pretty good week. We had the Google. I know you don't call it a capitulation. I do. But we had the Google story. And then we've got some big stories that came out today and yesterday. And we'll get into it. Before we do that, folks, let's get a word from our sponsors. Got a new sponsor here on deck. Cryptocurrency is on fire. And here's some huge news. Huge. Trump media just signed a massive $6.4 billion deal with Yorkville Acquisition Corp and Crypto.com, the crypto platform trusted by millions of users worldwide. They're teaming up to acquire up to $6.4 billion in CRO to establish America's first CRO treasury. Trump Media Group CRO strategy. Once complete, this new company will be the largest publicly traded CRO holder out there. Ready to join the crypto revolution? Head to crypto.com today and be part of this historic move. Again, that's crypto.com. Don't wait for more information on the proposed business combination. Check out Yorkville Acquisition Corp's public filings. All right, welcome to Badlands, crypto.com. And let's also talk about our friends over at Chef Man. You guys know I absolutely love my Chef Man. Chris, you're a fan of the
big fan.
Yeah, the sensors.
Got the sensors, yes, but the ice machine and the obliterator.
That's called what does Ash call it? Ice Daddy or something like that. That's what she calls it. Yeah, I love all their things. The obliterator is absolutely awesome. The slushy machine is incredible. The ice maker, all of it, it's absolutely fantastic. So you guys know that I love the Chef Man appliances. Seriously, they completely upgraded my kitchen without doing a remodel. We need to remodel it, but it looks much better now with these modern looking things in there. You heard me talk about the Pebble Ice Maker. Gives you that perfect chewable ice, the kind you beg for when you go to the drive-thrus. I think Sonic has the nice crush, soft ice, and Chick-fil-A. Other than that, it's all that hard ice. Yeah, no thanks. But now I've got it at home every single day, and Chef Man has seriously outdone themselves with the obliterator. It's not just a blender, it's a kitchen beast. Total upgrade from anything I've ever had before. It blasts through everything from frozen margaritas to hot soups and sauces, smoothies, everything. This thing is unstoppable. And it's smart. It's got an auto blend technology setting, which means no guesswork. You literally just press the button, it reads the texture and gets it to perfect consistency every single blend. No more mystery chunks in your smoothies. And get this, it cleans itself. You just press the self-clean mode and boom, you're done. It's got this sleek, compact, award-winning design, so it looks great on your countertop, and it's every bit as powerful as those quote-unquote fancy blenders, but without the ridiculous price tag. And with my discount, you will get even more off of the Chefman appliances. Visit chefman.com/Badlands and use promo code Badlands for 20% off. Again, that's chefman.com/Badlands, promo code Badlands. And before we get into the show today, folks, if you have not done so yet, please smash that thumbs up. Helps us out tremendously. And you're going to like today's show. You know, there's shows that are good and shows that are bad news. And this was a good news show. So before we get into that, we do have a Badlands boost. WT Foxtrot says NorCal Badlanders meet up, MEAT, at Fargo de Minas, a Brazilian steakhouse in Sacramento, on Saturday, October 4th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. You can RSVP at W_T_Foxtrot or email NorCalFansOfBadlands@gmail.com for details. Damn, guys, I'm going to be in NorCal October 10th, I think. So missing it by a week.
You just missed the meat extravaganza.
I know. Brazilian steakhouse, I'd be all about that, man.
Yes.
Is San Francisco Northern California? No, it's like
San
middle.
Francisco is Northern California, yeah.
It is northern? Okay,
Yeah.
so that's where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in that area. I don't know exactly where I'm going to be. It's for a wedding, so.
Nice.
All right, sorry. Let's get into the news. I did something today, Chris, that I haven't done in at least 20 years. At least 20 years. This morning I had to run to the gas station and I bought a newspaper. Haven't done it in 20 years. I saw this and I was like, I got to have that. That's going to be framed and put somewhere up there. So James Comey has been indicted on 2 felony counts. We're going to get into all that news right here. We'll start out with President Trump's Truth Social on this. Justice in America, one of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to, is James Comey, the former corrupt head of the FBI. Today, he was indicted by a grand jury on 2 felony counts for various illegal and unlawful acts. He has been so bad for our country for so long and is now at the beginning of being held responsible for his crimes against our nation. Make America great again. I think it's interesting that President Trump says he's at the beginning of being held for his crimes against our nation, because the 2 charges, we have an obstruction of justice charge and we have a lying to Congress charge. While those are crimes, I don't know if I would qualify those as crimes against our nation. And I kind of am hoping, obviously, as many people in this audience are, that we get, I'm hoping Comey and the rest of these people are not like, you know, the Al Capone where you get them on tax evasion, right? You want to get them on the real charges. So hopefully this is just kind of the bedrock for that, the foundation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the way I'm kind of looking at this is very much like the indictments of, gosh, I can't think of his name, from the Durham investigation, the third one that was like the one that Bongino used to always talk about, and the rest of it. All those investigations and those trials, not much came of it, right? We got a very minor conviction of Kevin Kleinsmith for changing an email. It was stuff along those, like just the bare minimum level of what we are told has happened with this grand conspiracy to undermine Donald Trump. And despite the fact that convictions weren't made at that point, and people got pretty upset that there were no more indictments, there was still a lot of information that came out through those trials that, you know, I think many of us believe all that information is part of the grander RICO conspiracy tactic that seems to be what's being pursued right now. And so as far as I'm concerned, this stuff just arm's length, and I'm waiting to see where else this goes. I mean, the lying to Congress charge, Congress and the Senate aren't legitimate. I don't know if they were in 2020, but I have to think that they're not. Steve Bannon went to prison last year because he was held in contempt of Congress for not going in and participating in their illegitimate investigation. So, you know, the stuff that stems from Congress, these are crimes against the government the government is able to force people to do this and that and tell them the truth and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I'm very happy that it seems like we are moving in a direction of accountability. James Comey is one piece. He's a lower to mid-size piece in what is a very, very large puzzle. So definitely positive, definitely advancement, but let's see where it goes.
Yeah, Steve Bannon put out on Getter this morning that Comey won't last in prison. So in response to the indictment, so that's pretty epic right there, as him and Navarro had to do their time in prison for what I believe to be much lesser charges with an actual, they actually had a legitimate claim that they, the executive privilege assertion. Comey does not. Comey flat out lied. We're going to go through some of the clips and everything else here. Let's start out with this clip of President Trump yesterday during his meeting with Erdogan, being asked about the indictment being imminent and his response.
Mr. President, it seems like an indictment of James Comey is imminent. Would this be the first step in accountability for pushing the hoax of Russia, along with Barack Obama involved as well?
Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen because I don't know. You have very professional people headed up by the Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and Lindsay Halligan, who's very smart, good lawyer, very good lawyer. They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, so there we have it. Is this the beginning? Well, I can't really say whether or not it is. I think we all believe that this is the beginning. This is the first, one to happen. There's a lot of speculation about what's going to be next. We did get some more remarks from President Trump on this. This was this morning at 6:57. He said, whether you like corrupt James Comey or not, and I can't imagine too many people liking him, he lied. It's not a complex lie. It's a very simple but important one. There's no way he can explain his way out of this. He is a dirty cop and always has been. But he was just assigned a crooked Joe Biden appointed judge. So he's off to a very good start. Nevertheless, words are words, and he wasn't hedging or in dispute. He was very positive. There was no doubt in his mind about what he said or meant by saying it. He left himself zero margin of error on a big, important answer to a question. He just got unexpectedly caught. James Dirty Cop Comey, we got a new nickname there. James Dirty Cop Comey was a destroyer of lives. He knew exactly what he was saying, and that it was a very serious and far-reaching lie for which a very big price must be paid. President DJT. So again, go ahead, Chris. I'll let you.
Well, I just want to say, I think it was interesting that Trump declared essentially in that statement you played that he does have the ability to get involved with these sorts of things. The president is the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. So he's allowed to get involved absolutely wherever he wants. And not only does the Constitution permit him to do that, it assigns him the duty to do that. And he can delegate that as in the way the system operates now. But ultimately, it is his responsibility. And of course, he can be involved at any point.
Yeah, I agree with that. But the problem that he might run into is these are essentially crimes that were directly, he was a victim of these crimes, right? And so you do have a conflict of interest there. And so
I don't know if that's a conflict of interest. I mean, he was the person in the office that was being attacked. That is true. But in addition to that, the office was being attacked. And the fact that he happens to occupy that office, that cannot eliminate his ability from that office to pursue the perpetrators. That's how I would.
Yeah, I just hope that, they don't somehow turn around and use the kind of rhetoric and the statements that he's been making against him. I'm sure they're going to try that. There's no question. They're going to go in the court and say Trump said this, probably put gag orders on him. Wouldn't that be epic if they start putting gag orders on the sitting president of the United States?
I could see that. Did you see the posts about this judge in the last day or so?
No,
This
you want to pull it up?
This judge that has been assigned. I don't know if I'll be able to quickly find it, but the judge who's been assigned apparently was hired by James Comey twice. Once in like 1995 and again in I think 2002 or something like that.
He's got to recuse himself then. He's got to be recused. If he's ever been hired by James Comey, then he can't preside over that. That's insane.
Well, it would be insane if all of this was a real thing that was happening in a properly functioning system, but I'm not sure that we can achieve any of those levels of certainty.
Oh my goodness. Well, here's the indictment. On or about September 30th in the Eastern District of Virginia, James Comey did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States by falsely stating to a U.S. senator during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he had not, quote, authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports, and quote, regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one. Statement was false because Comey then and there knew he in fact had authorized person three to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one, all in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001. And then on or about September 30th, he did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being made before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee. Again, I hope this is not Al Capone's tax evasion. But you know, I hope Comey's singing, man. That's all I got.
So this judge, apparently his name is Nachmanov. He was in fact hired by James Comey. I think that this is the sightings are in Wikipedia.
Can you send that link in the private chat?
1995 to 1996, and again in 2002. And then there was one other interesting thing I just saw. Biden appointee, of course. And go ahead. I just sent that over. So
I got it.
Pull that up for people. But yeah, that's just one of those things that should immediately make you step back and hold this story at arm's length. This sort of thing is a sign that something is amiss, I would say.
Yeah. After graduating law school, Nachmanoff served as a law clerk for Judge Leonie Brinkema of the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia from 95 to 96. After his clerkship, he joined the firm Cohen, Gettings, and Dunham, where he was an associate from 96 to 2000 and a partner from 2000 to 2002. Where does it say he was hired by Comey?
And isn't the Eastern District of Virginia where all of this was just worked through with Siebert and now Halligan?
Yes. Yeah. From 96 to 2001, Mr. Comey served as managing assistant U.S. attorney in charge of the Richmond division of the U.S. Attorney's Office. While in Richmond, he directed the Khobar Towers terrorist attack case. Mr. Comey served as deputy chief of criminal division at the U.S. Attorney's Office for SDNY, where he served. All right, I'll have to dig through all this later, but that's definitely interesting. Here is the remarks that got Comey in the hot water.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Question two on relatively related. Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No.
On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal, and that you were directly aware of it, and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
And there you have it. That's what's going to bring down the house of cards.
Remember a month ago when the document that supposedly shows Comey's guilt on this claim came out, and I said, this guy, Rybacki, I think that's it, Rybacki, something like that.
The Columbia professor?
Yeah. So this was a claim that he made. He said Comey authorized him to go leak to the media. Okay. So we have McCabe saying that Comey did that, and we have this Rybacki character saying that he did that. That's not direct evidence. I just hope we're clear about that, right? That is a claim made by someone.
No, that's firsthand. If Rybacki was the guy that was actually doing the leaking,
okay,
then,
but it's also entirely dependent on him telling the truth about that.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, but
if he's not telling the truth about that, and Andrew McCabe, who is totally untrustworthy, is not telling the truth about that, well, then we've got a different story.
I mean, that's a real possibility. I mean, I don't know that we've seen any of the evidence if they had any correspondence amongst each other.
Right.
I know that
all we've seen is that document.
What's that?
I said all we've seen is that document that got released 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. Yeah.
I'm trying to find out because Comey came out and made a video response to all this, saying that I'm innocent and that, you know, we'll see you in court and, you know, typical stuff like that. But
the thing from last night.
Yeah. It was almost like what was the one that he did, like a Taylor Swift or something? Didn't he do
Yes.
one? Or like,
he did a weird Taylor Swift one. He did the same kind of video when he had to apologize for the 8647 seashells, that whole event. So
yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, if you have somebody that's literally, you know, that's saying I was the source that he leaked to, you know, did they only meet in person? Was he smart enough to cover his tracks and not, you know, ever do anything on paper or, you know, electronic devices? Those are all really fair questions. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. But
I mean, there's plenty that they could be going after people like James Comey for. And the inciting incident of James Comey's criminality, as we understand it, was from back in 2016. So 9 years have passed since then. And this is what we're starting with. Now, you know, you said the Al Capone thing. Maybe it's just this is what they can get him on. I don't know. But there's clearly a lot more going on. So it can't end here. And just to be clear, I don't expect it to end here. You know, this thing in itself might not be what we believe it to be and what it's being reported to be over the last 24 or 48 hours. But that doesn't mean that it's not going anywhere and then it's not going to lead to bigger things.
Yeah, well, so me and Alpha were talking about that last night, and we think, you know, we believe that this is in hopes of Comey, you know, either rolling on someone, you know, turning state's witness, and whatever the case might be.
But what if Comey did that 9 years ago? You know what I mean? What if he did it 6 years ago? And then if that's the case, then it looks like the Rybacki thing is a chance to take Comey down by whatever elements of that deep state contingent are still present in the Trump administration. Now, I'm not suggesting Todd Blanche, of all people, is one of those people, and who knows about Pam Bondi, but you know, we gotta keep ourselves with some distance from this rather than fully embracing it. Because, we just went through a period where we saw Donald Trump indicted over and over and over again for crimes that he didn't commit, crimes that don't exist, and indictments that were based on white papers at the Brookings Institution that were themselves based on news reports. So, the idea that the Department of Justice, through its totally illegitimate sub-agencies, is going around indicting people, that doesn't really carry the sway that it used to.
So, I think the Comey thing, we always talk about the racketeering and how the racketeering, the statute of limitations on it doesn't expire until 5 years after the last act that, continued the racketeering operation. And, I'm wondering if perhaps they brought this charge right here to show that there was a continuation. Now, I think we all believe the continuation carried on, throughout the 2020 election, and probably beyond that into to some extent into January 6th, into the Biden administration. But they are running out of time, to continue that statute of limitations. So if this is an ongoing prosecution, I would think that would extend the racketeering overall. So this could be a strategic move, even if it doesn't, end up producing fruit. So
sure, exactly. And by the way, the name I was searching for and not finding earlier is Igor Danchenko. I kept wanting to say Poroshenko, and I was like, that's Ukraine.
Yeah. All right. So we'll jump into this isn't a story. This tweet here, Glenn Thrush, Eastern District of Virginia prosecutor Troy Edwards, James Comey's son-in-law, resigned after the ex-FBI director was charged over objections of career attorneys. Edwards, who helped prosecute J6 rioters, said he left to uphold his duty to the Constitution and country in an email. And that email is published here. To uphold my oath to the Constitution and country, I hereby resign as an assistant United States attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia in the DOJ, effective immediately. So this is the guy that was married to Maureen Comey, and apparently, I guess, I mean, is the Eastern District of Virginia close enough to the Southern District of New York that they would commute that distance, or do they just really hate each other and they don't stay in the same household?
I mean, the commute is 5 hours, I think, by car, and probably, I don't know how it is by train, but a lot of people do take that train. Don't they call that there's a special name they call it like the Acela corridor right around the Capitol. But then, they kind of talk about that I-95 corridor that goes all the way up between the major East Coast cities.
I have no idea. I mean, maybe they're working remotely, but I never want to be at a point in my life where I despise my wife enough that I would be away from her for more than 5 days at a time, consistently over and over again. Like that should be a testament to their marriage. Maybe he's working in the post-COVID era. Maybe they're doing everything remotely now, and he works from an office in the Southern District in New York. But that sucks, man. Also, how many family members does this guy have in U.S. attorneys' offices throughout the country?
Well, that's a good thing to bring up. How much nepotism is there in the system? And it's complete nepotism.
Yeah, and how do they always end up with cases like the Epstein case? And what was the other big one Maureen Comey worked on? She did Epstein. She did Puff Daddy. What were the other ones that she did? She did some other big cases.
Was there one of the Trump indictments that she worked on?
No. Did she?
No. I'm thinking of
now we got to.
I'm conflating her in my head with the judge's daughter who was doing Democrat PR.
Oh yeah.
That's not it. Yeah,
Mershon.
That's right.
Let's see. Jeffrey Epstein. She was part of that. Ghislaine Maxwell. She was part of that. Sean Diddy Combs. Robert Menendez. Bob Menendez.
Wow.
Robert Haddon. Comey prosecuted OBGYN Robert Haddon on charges related to sexual abuse of patients. That's probably a good one. So was the Sean Diddy, although she botched that up royally. Yeah, that's interesting. So she got Menendez and the Maxwell cases. What I wonder, let me ask it what Troy Edwards, what cases has her husband, Troy Edwards, litigated?
There are some high profile cases. They're also all at least partially psyops.
Yeah. So Edwards did the Oath Keepers J6 case, the Abbey terrorist case, the Pentagon CIA espionage case. It says as deputy chief of the National Security Section, Edwards was responsible for overseeing and directly litigating high-profile espionage cases for the Pentagon and CIA. Those specific case names are not detailed publicly due to their classified nature. Interesting. Well, either way, he's out now, and now begins all the fun part of everybody with their clickbait and everything else. And I, again, don't know if this is clickbait or not. Paul Sperry, I'm told FBI HQ, that investigators and prosecutors have been zeroing in on alleged false statements Obama's top spook, John Brennan, gave in a May 11th, 2023 deposition in room 2237 of the Rayburn House office building developing. So we'll see what happens with that. I do think it's fascinating. Last night on SitRep, Alpha and Josh Reed joined us, and we were talking about, the indictment and how, there were Q posts from September 11th that were just nothing more than James Comey treason. And then the very next post was John Brennan treason. So, if you're in alignment with that, it would make sense that Brennan could potentially be the next indictment coming down. CNN seems to think that it's going to be John Bolton.
The Michael Bolton from Office Space, or the Michael Bolton, the singer?
The Michael Bolton from Lonely Island, the cinephile. You've seen that, right? The This is the tale of Captain Jack Sparrow. You've never seen that?
Yeah. That's the Michael Bolton, the singer, though, right?
The singer, right? Yeah. Or Michael Bolton from The Office. I got you on that. So here we go. Senior DOJ leaders advocating for charging Trump critic John Bolton this week, sources say. Senior Justice Department leaders are advocating for charges against John Bolton. According to two sources familiar with the investigation, currently, the prosecutors think they could bring a stronger case by the end of the year against Bolton rather than pushing for a charge at this time. Some political leadership at the Justice Department see the Bolton case as a way to charge a criminal case that Trump would like to see to placate the president. So Ab Lowell, his attorney, says the documents with classification markings date back to Ambassador Bolton's time in the G.W. Bush administration. An objective and thorough review will show nothing inappropriate was stored or kept by Ambassador Bolton. So I don't know what the next one's going to be, but it's like a dartboard, man. Just throw it, and it's the balloon game where there's just a ton of balloons on a wall and you throw darts at it. That's pretty much what you could do right now, because once the house of cards comes tumbling down, it just everybody goes.
Yeah, I mean, these people are not. As far as we know, these people are terrible. John Bolton, John Brennan, Comey, I'm less concerned about, but Bolton and Brennan and people like that, want to see them go down. But man, we are in a weird period right now.
That's a great point, because I was thinking about this last night, and I was like, of all the people that could go down for this, even people in the FBI, Comey's the least that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I want to see McCabe first and foremost. McCabe for sure. Peter Strzok for sure.
Yeah, you can just go down the list. Yeah.
I mean, Brennan 100%. I mean, that's CIA, but Brennan.
The intel people on the 51 intelligence officials letter. I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah. So that, maybe that, to the point that maybe Comey's been singing for a while, because there really isn't a there's not really like a foul taste in your mouth when you hear Comey. Like, you think Comey's a shithead, like you think he's a bad guy, dirty cop and all that, but like nothing near Brennan and Clapper and all those other actors in this. So perhaps that is kind of like the litmus. Like, let's see how this goes. And is he going to sing? Has he been singing? Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then I mean the 8647 thing was so blatant.
Stupid.
And you know, the response, of course, was Comey's evil, Comey's evil. And it's, you know, then when you see scripted occurrences like what we're witnessing now, it's like, okay, well, you were setting this up, you were seeding parts of this narrative so that people would then react a certain way. And of course, you know, regardless of the reality of the situation, there are coordinated messaging ops spinning out off this Comey indictment. And we can see it on all sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. The Bolton story is interesting. We talked yesterday. We covered a story on it yesterday with Alpha, and the whole idea that he had his email hacked. The national security advisor, a spy through and through, an intelligence guy, not intelligent guy, intelligence guy, and he's using AOL email, and it's just like, yeah, could you pick something a little more insecure? Although that's most likely the point, to use something that can easily be hacked and then disseminate information to your foreign affiliates that way, and then still maintain plausible deniability if something comes up like this. It's interesting. I mean, obviously we have no idea what evidence they have and all that stuff, but I actually tend to agree with CNN on Bolton there, that they're reporting that wait till the end of the year. We got to have patience with this, and you only get one bite at this apple. And so if there's anybody that's reluctant. So yesterday we heard with Comey that the Eastern District was like, no, you can't indict him. All the prosecutors there were like, there's not enough to indict here. Well, that turned out to be false. I mean, you can indict a ham sandwich, of course, but that's also the Eastern District that is full of people that have just been, incest with the intelligence community, the CIA, the FBI, everybody's based in the Eastern District of Virginia. And so it's not surprising that they're like, hey, you don't want to go to war with this because you're barking up the wrong tree by indicting a former FBI leader. The whole point, what I'm getting at here is you got to make sure that everything is set perfect before you're going to go through with this.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the comments from these other attorneys talking about how much evidence there was to indict and the rest of it, that wave of opinion in that direction is supposed to make the CNN viewer, the MSNBC viewer, think that some grave injustice is being committed right now. And,
Agreed.
That is a total contrivance.
Agreed. But, this is just like the Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk assassination thing. He's got a public defender right now, right? Any attorney in their right mind, if there is, some malicious involvement, state actors, whatever the case might be, there's going to be tremendous pressure on the attorneys that defend him to take a plea deal, to plead guilty, maybe no death penalty, whatever the case might be, and make this go away. You'll see the same thing with what's going to unfold after Comey in the Eastern District, where you have attorneys that are, embedded with intelligence assets and whatnot, intelligence operatives, and they're going to do the same thing, encourage us to go away, potentially sabotage cases intentionally. It's going to be, there's going to be a lot of highs and highs and lows in this. It's going to be a roller coaster for the laymen like us, the people that are just kind of observing from the outside looking in and not understanding what's actually going on behind the scenes. We're going to see ups and downs. We're going to see cases get dismissed. We're going to see charges get dismissed. We're going to see evidence get disqualified. This is going to be a really interesting ride.
Yeah. And I think it's important not to invest ourselves emotionally in every new twist and turn the story takes, because that is what we've been conditioned to do. We they make sure that the official story gets cemented in the public consciousness, and then they give us a new piece, and then they make sure that piece is cemented, and then they give us a new piece. And we just keep hanging on to every little bit of it, thinking that the story is developing naturally in reality, but that's not what's happening. We're just having a narrative released to us piece by piece so that we accept every piece of it. And then by the end of it, we've accepted the whole thing. And we've certainly accepted all the foundational premises of it after it's been 2 or 3 or 4 weeks where the narrative is added to and added to and added to. There are people right now who think that Donald Trump actually had a sexual assault encounter with E. Jean Carroll. You know, that's nuts. There's not a single piece of evidence there, but not one. There's not even any reason to believe that it might be true. And yet there are people who believe that they have followed an evidentiary trail down to the end and that he has been, you know, convicted by a jury of his peers. And all of that is because they bought story piece by story piece and got emotionally invested into all of it. And as soon as you emotionally invest, then you want to go fight about it on the internet. You make your points even more, you commit more solidly to all of your points than you were when you started. By the end of that process, everything is a mess and there's no rationality in it whatsoever. Those ups and those downs, I focus on those elements to see where the direction of the story is going, not judging each one about whether or not they're going to help put James Comey away.
Yeah. Well, as big as the James Comey indictment yesterday was, I don't think that was the biggest story of the day.
Wow.
So, yeah, we'll get into the biggest, what I believe to be the biggest story of the day. But before we do that, folks, let's get a word from our final sponsor of the show here, and that is Native Path. Guys, are you ready to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and see a plump, hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Discover Native Path Collagen, made with only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. Found in your cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, and gut, types 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners, and it's third-party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. It's completely flavorless. Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeal, you name it. Its peptide formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes perfectly without clumping. And the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. Join their private Facebook community to share your success stories, recipes, and support each other on this journey called life. Visit getnativepath.com/badlands and start your transformation today. Again, that's getnativepath.com/badlands. All right, let's jump into what I consider to be the biggest story of yesterday. From Just the News, FBI bombshell, 274 agents sent to the Capitol for January 6th. Many later complained that they were political pawns. An operation so disorganized that it unleashed searing frustration among many of the FBI's rank and file, and the Bureau had lost its core competencies to quote-unquote wokeness and allowed its employees to become, quote, pawns in a political war, according to an after-action report kept from the public for more than 4 years. Scores of FBI agents and personnel, many from the Washington field office, sent anonymous complaints to the after-action team detailing how agents were sent into an unsafe scenario without proper safety equipment or the ability to identify themselves readily as armed officers to other police agencies. Now, keep that in mind. That is a very important sentence, and I have to go, and I just picked this up right now as I was reading it. I have to go through the report itself and find out exactly what this concern was. But this is a very important line, and you'll understand why in a second. The most persistent complaint was that the Bureau during the James Comey and Chris Wray era had become infected with political biases and liberal ideology that treated the protesters from the summer of 2020 Black Lives Matter riot far differently than those arrested in the aftermath of J6. You think? Quote, the FBI should make clear to its personnel and the public that despite its obvious political bias, it ultimately still takes its mission and priorities seriously, one employee wrote. It should equally and aggressively investigate criminal activity regardless of the offender's perceived race, political affiliations, or motivations. And it should equally and aggressively protect all Americans regardless of perceived race, political affiliations, or motivations. That agent urged the FBI to, quote, identify viable exit options for FBI personnel who no longer feel it is legally or morally acceptable to support a federal law enforcement and intelligence agency motivated by political biases. By the way, the FBI is not supposed to be an intelligence agency. They're a law enforcement agency. Quote, currently, the U.S. Attorney's Office is dictating what it is that gets investigated. This is a dangerous precedent because we can barely get them to prosecute investigations that clearly meet thresholds needed for federal prosecutions. However, their willingness to conduct a search warrant on someone's life for a misdemeanor seems ridiculous. It is unreasonable for the FBI to conduct investigations involving misdemeanor violations at a federal level. It is not our role. Going on, it says the Washington field office is a hopelessly broken office that's more concerned about wearing masks and recruiting preferred racial/sexual groups than catching actual bad guys. You want to comment before I keep going here?
No, keep going.
This is freaking epic, man. Christopher Wray steadfastly refused to tell Congress how many, and if any agents went to the Capitol that day. A prior DOJ Inspector General report did not divulge the number, referring only to a SWAT team the Bureau sent into the Capitol and having, quote, more than 24 informants in the crowd. Quote, we have been used as pawns in a political war, and FBI leadership fell into the trap and has allowed it to happen, one employee wrote. We are supposed to call balls and strikes regardless of political pressure. Now we can't even be trusted to be on the field, commented an agent. And then lastly, I think this is the last quote. The actions on January 6th were absolutely despicable and unacceptable in a civilized society. But what is even more unacceptable was the hypocrisy displayed by the FBI and its leadership in their attempt to go after those involved in the Capitol riots, while we as agents watched cities burn across America during the summer of 2020. The conspiracy to commit crimes at the Capitol were also committed by bad actors during the summer riots of 2020. Agents stood by on the ground in Washington, D.C. and observed stores being looted, burned, and ripped of anything of value. Even worse, officers were assaulted in the streets in broad daylight with cameras rolling, and yet our response was nothing like the Capitol riot response on or after January 6th. That's a fascinating report that I need to read.
Yeah, I mean, again, same thing as before. I want to get down all the way to the end of this, but what a morass we are in. I mean, when we're talking about the riots in the summer of 2020, a lot of that was staged, a lot of that was organized, a lot of that was well funded. And so when you get to that point, you're already in a different realm than just people going out naturally, getting caught and lost in the emotion and the energy of the crowd, and then doing a bunch of terrible things. That's how it's always described to us. These people went out to protest racial injustice, and then they ended up burning and looting a store. Same thing with the Capitol. I don't know if you've ever seen like the Woo's News videos on the January 6th insurrection, but I would encourage everybody out there to take a look at those videos. They're on YouTube still, WOOZ News, Woo's News. And man, they're these long, like hour and a half. I think there's two of them, like documentary length videos about the Capitol riots that show a lot of the staging, a lot of the organization, and then the fakery involved in a lot of what we saw play out on the news. A lot of that stuff that was meant to look super dramatic and really awful, the stuff that supported the insurrection narrative, a lot of that stuff doesn't hold up when you take the time and look at it in all these various angles. There were different staging areas where like waters were left for the participants. They were having discussions about what they were going to do from one side of the fence to the other. And then all of a sudden the fence just came tumbling down. I mean, there's just so much bullshit involved in these events that you don't even know which side is being unraveled when you see this stuff falling apart like it is.
Yeah, let's keeping all this in mind, and I promise there's an overall point to playing all these clips here. I've got 3 clips. This first one is we're gonna start from low hanging fruit all the way up to the top dogs here. This was Ted Cruz with Jill Sanborn back in the day.
How many FBI agents or confidential informants actively participated in the events of January 6th?
Sir, I'm sure you can appreciate that I can't go into the specifics of sources and methods.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants actively participate in the events of January 6th? Yes or no?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants commit crimes of violence on January 6th?
I can't answer that, sir.
Did any FBI agents or FBI informants actively encourage and incite crimes of violence on January 6th?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Ms. Sadburn, who is Ray Epps?
I'm aware of the individual, sir. I don't have the specific background to him.
Okay, so we can cut that there, and I apologize for the echo. That's because they both had their mics on in that questioning there. So what we know so far after this report here is that when Jill Sanborn initially says, I can't answer that, it's because the answer is no, right? I think Ted Cruz even goes on, or maybe it's Thomas Massey and later on in another clip here. But they say, well, the answer should be no, right? Like if the answer is no, you can say no. It's only when the answer is nuanced or when it's yes that you're protecting something. The answer should be no. You don't have FBI agents in the crowd trying to incite violence or whatever, but they start at a ground level, right? Did you have FBI agents in the crowd? I can't answer that. Well, we now know that not only is that true, but they've lied to us consistently as they give us a little bit more and more truth. And we don't even know if 274 is the final number. We don't know if that's the truth. That's just a report that they've hidden from us for 4 years. But they started out, yeah, there's like 5 or 10. And then there was 24 confidential human sources and informants in the crowd. Now it's 274 plainclothes FBI agents.
That's a lot. And the fact that none of them have come out and said this is what was going on that day, that's suspicious. Are we to imagine that all 274 were aligned in their motivations and their actions that day? I don't know, man. There's a lot. I mean, this is our first look at this story as it begins developing. So we'll
to me,
find out over time.
To your point that you just made there, Chris, why didn't any of them come out? Well, in that report, they're all anonymous, right? All the people that came out and said this is getting political, what the hell is this? All of them are remaining anonymous, and there's a reason for that. If you're going to remain anonymous, I mean, we have whistleblowers like Kyle Seraphin, Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle. Like we have whistleblowers that have come out and face potential blowback, however you want to call that. But they come out and they put their name on it. This is a situation here where you could put your name on it, but they're staying anonymous because perhaps the consensus in their amongst their colleagues in the Washington field office is either go along to get along, or they genuinely are engaged in this psychological operation, in this whatever you want to call it, this false flag. And so, you got to look at this now. Like there's a lot. You got to remember, man, they kicked doors down over this for misdemeanors, right? Mm-hmm. They kicked doors down. They raided people's homes. They destroyed lives of thousands of Americans over this. And they had 274 agents in there, plus their informants still.
Yeah. Well, when you think about the possibility that a lot of this stuff was staged on that day, and clearly a lot of it was, the people in the crowd are all identified visually and collectively as Trump supporters, people who were mad that the 2020 election was stolen and did not want to see Joe Biden certified as president. And so among those people identified as Trump supporters, there are people who are clearly not Trump supporters, people who were there specifically to make Trump supporters look bad. So were the FBI agents in plain clothes the people attempting to make Trump supporters look bad and then prosecute them for that? Or were they people there to just quietly monitor and record all these bad actors were doing? So, man, again, first look. We don't know these kinds of things right now, but we got to keep our minds open to a range of possibilities, not just the idea that these 274 people were there to entrap normal American citizens who are MAGA supporters.
It's also worth noting that this was in the middle of COVID, and all of these agents were walking around, federal government employees walking around in a crowd, probably no masks, none of the, no social distancing, none of that stuff. It was okay when it's to entrap American citizens and put them away because they're trying to cover up their stolen election and their draconian lockdowns and everything else. Then it's okay. It's justified for 274 federal employees to be walking around without honoring and acknowledging the safety guidelines that the CDC and FDA have forced down our throat for the last, at that point, 8 or 9 months. That's okay. I want to play this clip here. This is Andy Biggs going after Christopher Wray. And Christopher Wray is very deliberate in how he answers this question. I want you to see if you pick up on it, and then I'm going to decimate how he answers this question.
Things here, and please don't distract here, because we're focusing on those who were there in an undercover capacity on January 6th. How many were there?
Again, I'm not sure that I can give you that number as I sit here. I'm not sure there were undercover agents on scene.
I find that kind of a remarkable statement, Director. At this point, you don't know whether there were undercover federal agents, FBI agents in the crowd or in the Capitol on January 6th.
I say that because I want to be very careful. There have been a number of court filings related to some of these topics, and I want to make sure that I stick within what's in.
I understand that, but I thought I heard you say you didn't know whether there were FBI agents or informants or human sources in the Capitol or in the vicinity on January 6th. Did I misunderstand you? I thought that's what you said.
Well, I referred very specifically to undercover agents.
Yeah. And so are you acknowledging then there were undercover agents?
As I sit here right now, I do not believe there were undercover agents on scene.
All right, so he's making a distinction between undercover agents and the rest of them, and Biggs doesn't seem to be catching that.
He doesn't catch it because it's a nuanced, it's semantics, right?
Yeah.
Undercover.
It's a conflation of different ideas, right?
So it's undercover versus plain clothes. So that's the term they're using right now. And, I was playing around when I heard that and I saw that clip right there. I was like, okay, so Wray is clearly trying to distinguish the difference between, without saying plain clothes, the difference between an undercover agent and plain clothes. And so I started playing around with the machine and asking it, how does the FBI distinguish undercover from a plainclothes agent? And it says an undercover agent assumes a false identity or persona as part of a covert operation, embedding themselves into a criminal organization, groups, or circles to collect intelligence or evidence without their real association to law enforcement being known by targets. A plainclothes agent is a law enforcement member who simply wears civilian attire rather than a uniform, generally to avoid easy identification as law enforcement during surveillance, crowd observations, or non-uniform assignments, but does not operate under a false identity. Plainclothes agents are identifiable as law enforcement if needed, often carrying badges and credentials, and usually do not assume false identities and may act openly as agents if circumstances require. So, a couple ways I would push back at that. For one, what is the uniform of an FBI agent? They don't wear
jean shorts.
Yeah, they don't wear right. What's the Fed picture where the guys are all standing around
exactly.
with Ray-Bans on and they're like, yeah. Is it a suit? Is it the jacket that says FBI on the back, the blue jacket with the yellow lettering that says FBI on the back? What is an FBI agent's uniform? And if you're in plain clothes, like the plainclothes agents that came to my shop and harassed me at my business, they were wearing jeans and a polo, but they had a badge on their little waistband, right? You could see like clipped to their belt loop, there was an FBI badge, and they identified themselves as that. Now, here's the key for me in how Wray, I think, perjured himself, because I believe the agents in that crowd were in fact undercover. And here's why. Jill Sanborn wouldn't disclose how many agents were there. That's a covert operation. If you won't tell the public, congressional oversight, how many agents were operating on that day, That's a covert operation. That's classified, or it's, whatever the case might be. So
but that doesn't necessarily mean undercover, does it?
I mean, it's a covert operation. If it's plain clothes, then you identify yourself as a law enforcement if you're asked, or you have an identifying mark on you. You just happen to be in plain clothes. You don't want to have, you don't want to stick out like a thumb, like a sore thumb, right? So you just nuanced identification. But see, to me, if you're going to, and again, we're arguing semantics, Christopher Wray could have, at that point said, sir, do you understand the difference between undercover and plain clothes? Because you don't seem to understand the difference. Let me explain it to you. I mean, obviously you don't volunteer that type of information when you're under oath, but by the same token, this has been something that's been kept from oversight for 4 years. We're going to play another clip here of Merrick Garland going through the same thing. Essentially, the Inspector General's report did not disclose how many of these agents were operating in there. They said they had a SWAT team and some human sources. These 274 agents were running a covert operation if the public cannot know about it. And to me, that's undercover, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm for full transparency from the government at all times. So I take your point as far as the hiding of this information goes. But turning information over to Congress who can't prove its own legitimacy in office is not something that I'm going to get upset about,
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's check out this clip here. So this is Thomas Massey with Merrick Garland.
It's our constitutional duty to do oversight. Now, in that video, that was your answer to a question to me 2 years ago, when I said how many agents or assets of the government were present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol, and how many went into the Capitol. Can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, last time, you don't know how many there were, or there were none?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions. If there were any, I don't know how many. I don't know whether there are any.
I think you may have just perjured yourself that you don't know that there were any. You want to say that again? That you don't know that there were
I have
any?
no personal knowledge of this matter. I think what I said the last time.
You've had 2 years to find out. And today, by the way, that was in reference to Ray Epps. And yesterday you indicted him. Isn't that a wonderful coincidence? On a misdemeanor. Meanwhile, you're sending grandmas to prison. You're putting people away for 20 years for merely filming.
All right. So I think Merrick Garland did perjure himself. It is absolutely absurd to think that the Attorney General of the United States, after 2 years, never once said to the FBI, hey, did we actually have people in there? He either perjured himself or he's just, I think we all understand he was woefully insufficient as the Attorney General, but that's beyond negligence right there.
Could be that he's just kept out of the loop and not allowed to know anything about these situations because the president who appointed him was totally illegitimate and unelected.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks to always have to be like, well, wait a second.
Defer back to that.
But you really do have to keep those principles in mind at all times. I mean, I don't know where you are on the whole thing, but I'm pretty positive that something else was going on for the last 5 years. And to forget about that thing and pretend that that's not happening and take all this stuff at surface level face value, I can't get myself to do that because there is so much about that more foundational layer of what's going on underneath the smoke screen that we just don't know. And, I always come back to leaving the possibilities of the reality there a little bit more open and trying not to reach conclusions about things like Merrick Garland might have said. We've seen so many things from Merrick Garland that were so ridiculous. I recall even the press conference where he was announcing that there were going to be indictments on like Benny Johnson and Tim Pool. Remember that? That whole press conference was ridiculous. So what's happening out front is not what's happening behind, and trying to marry those things, I think, is very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I can look at it like I get both perspectives of this, the illegitimacy of the Biden administration, quote unquote, Biden administration, and whether or not they were actually ineffective or able to be ineffective, even though they were all ineffective, whether or not he was legitimate. Mm-hmm. By legitimate, I mean, he was appointed and Senate approved and confirmed and all that stuff.
And has all the privileges of his office. Right. That was another thing that we talked about with Joe Biden. I mean, I said Joe Biden was a fake president for the entire time. Now we have story after story about the auto pen. And now we have even Trump posted yesterday the Ted. Well, yes, that's hilarious. But he also posted Ted Cruz talking about the auto pen and kind of hinting around Biden's illegitimacy. And so that illegitimacy has to be taken into account if we're going to analyze anything that Joe Biden did. The illegitimacy is passed down, therefore, to his appointees, and we have to take that into account when we're analyzing what they're doing. If all of the Biden administration was illegitimate and there was something from the prior Trump administration, from military intelligence, from military justice, or whatever it might be, going on in the background, well, they're not going to let any of their stuff get into the hands of a Merrick Garland or a Joe Biden or any of his other appointees. And I would suggest that maybe that's why we're seeing why we saw the January 6th sham committee play out the way it played out, all based on these white papers, the white papers based on media reports. And now mysteriously, all of their evidence is just gone. They can't locate it. Well, why is that? I would suggest it's because they've never had any evidence, and all of these things were fishing expeditions to figure out what was going on behind the scenes.
I can get in. I can buy that, but I mean, I'm looking at it from the other perspective right here that he should have actually been briefed on the J6, happenings, because people were in fact going to prison, and now that we know the number of people that were embedded in there, this brings up a lot of freaking questions, man. Like how many Brady violations have taken place throughout the J6 trials? And I know that there's documented cases of it, but this adds another layer, because now, did they have interactions with FBI agents in the crowd? Did the FBI agents incite anything? Is this guy an FBI agent right here? Is that guy an FBI agent? How about the gallows? Remember the gallows? Nobody can identify this guy. But they tracked his cell phone. They tracked his cell phone to a coffee shop across the street from the Hoover building at 6 a.m. after they set it up. Maybe not that guy specifically, but the guys that were there setting up the gallows. These are a lot of questions that people have to start asking now that we know that there was more than 2 dozen, more like 20 dozen, 30 dozen FBI agents in there, but 25 dozen we'll go with.
There you go.
25 dozen. So 25 times 12 is 250, 274. Exactly 274. So 25 dozen FBI agents in the crowd. Next time you're at the grocery store, get a dozen eggs, take 25 of them and put them in your cart. And that's how many, each one represents an FBI agent. I mean, this is just insanity, dude. Like that is pretty crazy that they kept that from congressional oversight. That was like the closest kept secret in the closest kept secret that's now exposed. I'm sure there's much darker secrets in the FBI. Oh man, you can't hate these people enough, dude. Like, I'm full blown back on the abolish the FBI should not exist. I was willing to give it a chance to reform itself, and they fucked that up. They're done.
It should not exist in the first place. The idea that there should be a federal police force enforcing federal laws. There shouldn't be all these federal laws. The whole thing. I mean, the system has deteriorated to this point, and we can mourn the deterioration of this system that we were told was set out to be a perfect system. It's not that. No matter what we believe about the founding, the Constitution and the system we operate under now are not that.
Yeah. And we still don't know anything about the damn pipe bombs. That's the foundational key to all of this. Were those feds? See, now that's something maybe. Okay. So here we go. This is the soft disclosure to get to the pipe bombers, because now we know there's federal agents in there. And so now we're going to understand why that guy that walked in there and put the training devices with the egg timers, the 60-minute egg timers, 17 hours in advance, and then left, got on a train. We know his license plate number, but somehow we don't know who he is, and we've never tracked him down. You had to tell people first that there were 274 FBI agents in the crowd. So that now they're going to say, hey, wait, was that guy an FBI agent? Was that guy working for some sort of a federal government agency? And then, of course, we go back to Ray Epps. And as Thomas Massey said right there, conveniently, Ray Epps was indicted right when Ryan Samsel wanted to call him to his trial to testify about what actually was said when he whispered in his ear. New York Times says that he said, New York Times said that he said something along the lines of the cops are just doing their jobs. If you go back and listen to the tape, you can actually hear him. The camera was close enough to hear him whisper in Ryan Samsel's ear, and he says, "We need more people." Yeah. So this whole thing's going to unravel, and I love it. That's why I think that's a bigger story than the Comey indictment. All right, CNN. Trump signs memorandum ordering probes of groups aiding organized political violence. That's not the real. Well, that's not. That's a big deal. But I want to jump into just the news version of it. Soros Foundation gave $80 million to groups tied to "quote unquote" extremist violence. A new report details how a prominent billionaire may be funneling millions to extremist groups engaging in violent uprisings nationwide. The Capital Research Center details how billionaire Soros Open Society Foundations has given more than $80 million to groups, quote, tied to terrorism or extreme violence, with more than $23 million going to 7 groups, quote, that directly assist domestic terrorism and criminality in the United States. Quote, the Open Societies have sent millions of dollars into U.S.-based organizations that engage in, quote unquote, direct actions that the FBI defines as domestic terrorism. These groups include the Center for Third World Organizing and its militant partner, Ruckus Society, which trained activity in property destruction and sabotage during the 2020 riots. The Sunrise Movement, which endorsed the Antifa-linked Stop Cop City campaign, in which activists currently face over 40 domestic terrorism charges and 60 racketeering indictments. The Sunrise Movement, which it says has received at least $2 million from the Open Society, has, quote, endorsed and solicited financial support for Antifa-associated groups such as Stop Cop City and Defend the Atlanta Forest Coalition. Open Society gave $400,000 since 2020 to the Center for Third World, Ruckus, Blackout Collective, and boasts it, quote, threw down with people in the streets. Those organizations, quote, boast that they threw down with people in the streets during the George Floyd riots in 2020. So there we go. Let's get all
AOC was, sorry, I just cut you off at the end.
No, go ahead.
AOC was linked to the Sunrise Movement. I always think of those two things together.
Was that the one that they were like trying to fundraise for the bail? I can't remember because Kamala did that too.
I'm not sure that was the bail thing, but they are in communist activism all over the world.
Gotcha. Well, Soros was kicked out of his own country for a damn good reason, and
kicked out of many countries, actually.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the least bit upset about that. So we got an interesting article yesterday from the Washington Post about Donald Trump and the shutdown. White House begins plan for mass firings if there's a government shutdown. And so I don't know if this is President Trump trying to bluff here at the Dems, Schumer and all those other skills, or if this is like trying to take a bad situation or what, some will think is a bad situation and turn it into a positive. I don't know, but he's saying he's going to fire a bunch of people if the government shuts down, and I'm with him 100% on this. The White House Office of Management and Budget issued a memo late Wednesday directing agencies to consider firing employees working on any program that is not funded by another law, such as the Republicans' One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which does not align with Trump's priorities. Once government funding, not the Bill Act, but to fire government employees that don't align with Trump's priorities, as he should be permitted to do. Once government funding is reinstated after the shutdown, agencies should revise their plans to keep only the smallest number of employees necessary to legally operate. That is the smartest thing Washington Post has ever said. Somebody clip that, because that is the smartest thing they've ever written. Government agencies should always be at the smallest number of employees necessary to legally operate.
Yeah, but unfortunately they were quoting the memo.
I know. But okay, fair enough.
so I'm not sure how much credit they deserve for that.
Fair enough. Great point, man. Damn it. Anyway, Washington Post, I'm trying to throw you a bone here. It's a Friday. It's been a happy week. I'm trying to throw you a bone.
Bannon calls them the Langley Bugle.
Bugle.
Yeah.
Oh man, any such layoffs would add to those initiated earlier this year. The memo says Doge offered to pay thousands of federal employees through September 30th to leave their jobs. So I thought that was fascinating. I didn't pick up on that, Chris, until I was reading this article that President Trump, so he said during Biden's quote unquote administration that the government's going to shut down either under Biden or under me. I'd rather it be under Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes in and gives all these employees, their 8-month severance or whatever it is, 9-month severance, whatever the case might be, and says, get out by then. We'll pay you all the way. It didn't dawn on me that that date was September 30th and that's the day that we're facing another shutdown. And there's a whole bunch of other shit going down on September 30th. And so, one more part down here. One worker at the GSA, the General Services Administration, said he wished Trump officials would just hurry up and fire him if that's the ultimate plan. Quote, "I'm done living in fear," he said, adding that he and every one of his remaining colleagues feel miserable and ineffective most days. Congratulations on ruining the federal workforce in less than a year.
Yeah, success.
What in the world was that?
I saved that. You never watched Chit?
No, I don't know.
Oh
what that
my
is. No.
dude, it's like I don't know. It's like I don't know how to describe it. It's like a very mini series, like 1 to 2 minute episodes where he's like this awkward guy that's like an incredibly interesting person, and he works at an accounting firm, and in that video he's like, he walks in and he goes, "Is there a black person here?" And there's a black woman sitting there, and he goes, "What did you just say, shit?" He's like, "Is there a black person here?" And he goes, "No." And he, whatever. And then he finds it. He goes, "Success," and holds up a black purse. And she goes, "Did you mean a black purse in here?" And he says, "Yeah, that's what I said, a black person here." And then, anyways,
nice stuff. No, I like
dude, it's pretty hilarious, man. Anyways, so getting back to the story here, absolutely love that. Shut it down. But so September 30th, there's a lot of shit going on this day.
Yeah. Well, it's the end of the fiscal year. If the government shutdown finally happens, I think it has to happen eventually. And then who knows what spins out from that. This could just be one of those setups where they're like, you know what? It's going to be another 75 days. We just saw them do that with TikTok last week. So I wouldn't be surprised because, we've talked a number of times about how I think that there's a bunch of these critical dates that all seem to keep being aligned with one another, no matter how many extensions are made. And I think that that's because these are extreme leverage points that make them points of negotiation. And then when the negotiation is agreed to, they push out the final date of these deadlines for, usually 75 or 90 days. Trump has been pitching that it would be the Democrats' responsibility for shutting down the government because they want to fund illegal aliens and their medical care and their food and all this other stuff. They want to fund transgender surgeries. They're not going to make a deal with the Republicans until they get all of those things. So Trump is able to push this off onto them. So the Democrats would be responsible for the government shutdown. The government shutdown would be used to really just eliminate most of the workers in the federal government and bring every agency down to the bare bones operation required currently by, quote unquote statute or law. That's an incredible way for Trump to remove all of these federal government employees while the Democrats are blamed for it.
That's what I was getting out of that memo that he sent right there. That no.
Oh.
Your explanation is more eloquent than mine. That's what I was getting out of that memo, is that this is kind of like, okay, let's when life hands you lemons, let's make lemonade. Although I think shutting the government down it would widely be more like strawberries. I like strawberries. I don't like lemons as much as strawberries. I love strawberries. Yeah. So that would be like strawberries for me, and let's make strawberry lemonade. But when you compare, so the other thing that's going on, to your point right there about shutting down the government, we got this story here that was just bizarre, right? Hegseth abruptly summons top military commanders to a meeting in Virginia next week. So we talked about this on SitRep last night as well. This is insanely bizarre for a couple reasons. First and foremost, yesterday in the Oval Office, JD Vance and Vice President Vance and President Trump were there, and somebody asked them about this, and they keep using the term, especially when JD Vance and President Trump are responding, that they're being invited. As far as I know, they're not being invited. They're being ordered back there. When you're summoned by somebody higher than you in the chain of command, you don't say, well, I don't think I'm going to go. You get off your ass and you fucking go, period. And that's what these generals are going to do. Now, then JD Vance goes on to explain that, like, this is not unusual. Everybody's like, this is unusual. Everybody. You're talking about 800 generals and their staff that they're all going to bring to Quantico. Okay, so that's weird. You've got generals from all across the globe that are going to have to, put other people in positions to oversee continental United States, fly all across the United States to get to Quantico. And then we're going to take all of our top military brass and put them in one building. That doesn't sound very safe. I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at it a little too hard.
Yeah, that's kind of the movie version of it, is that they're all in one place and then that place gets attacked. But we just kind of saw a version of that on Sunday. They were, all the critical members of Trump's cabinet, not all of them, but many of them were in the same place on Sunday as well.
Yeah. So that was, Alpha was kind of saying last night, perhaps this is how, like, Hegseth brings them all in. He's like, okay, you guys are all relieved of your command, or, look under your seat. If you have a red note, you're staying. If you have a green note, you're staying. If you have a red note, you're out of here. I don't know, but this is really weird. And who knows, like, you could speculate all you want. The fact that they're announcing this and not keeping this, like, private, like, this should have been something that was done discreetly. Like, this should have been, wires going out to all these generals and saying, hey, you're coming back here. We need you to come back. Whatever the case might be. But the fact that they all have to show up in person in one building, just weird as shit, man. And then we got this the other night, President Trump at the White House. We had the silent drill platoon out in front. Absolutely awesome. Just really cool to see that. Then they all went to the Oval after that, and President Trump greeted them and gave them all challenge coins.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity.
It's my honor. You're great people. They're all good, aren't they?
That's awesome. If you've never seen the silent drill platoon perform, you got to go see it. It's something else, man. So, there's, a lot of people in the drops, hunt for Red October and everything else. And on the last day of September, you got a lot of strange shit happening.
Yeah. It's going to be another interesting week next week.
What if we come back on Wednesday next week, or the next time you and I are on the show together, and President Trump is like, yeah, we shut down the government. We fired half our general staff. Maybe they come back and they're like, hey, we're closing down all of our bases across the that are outside the United States. Maybe we'll leave open a handful. We don't need 700 bases throughout the world. We're closing them all back. You guys are all being recalled here, and half of you guys are going to get fired or retire. And man, that would be a dream come true.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, we hope these things are in the future, but man, oh man, we have been rugged before.
Yeah. And then the last thing to go over real quick, we got an update on the Charlie Kirk situation, and the conspiracy just gets deeper and deeper. So now they're alleging that there was no autopsy performed on Charlie Kirk. So anybody that was, and there's audio of them declining it and saying that the wife was coming to sign papers and all this stuff. So now we still don't know for sure what round shot him. We know that he has a adamantium spine that was able to stop the bullet and somehow lodge inside of his body, but we don't have the actual bullet. We also don't know if it was an exit wound or an entrance wound. I said last night on Sit Rep, take it for what it is. It's Stu Peters, but his exploding pager lapel mic, it's got a lot of freaking credibility with me. It's very interesting. And
Yeah, I would stay far away from all that stuff. I mean, it's been 17 days or 16 days, and we still have no confirmable facts of this entire thing. All we have seen is the inciting incident on one or two angles of video, and then a performance by the people on television.
Yep. 100%, man. I think that's all we've got. I know we got to try and keep it. I was trying to keep it a little bit short for you. I got to play this. This is probably the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. This is the most retarded video I've seen this year.
Welcome to America. Tell me what you're thinking.
Just so much.
Kleenexes, please.
I've always been interested in history and the history of Black people. I took Afrocentric classes at U of L. My grandma lived at 2821 West Kentucky Street. I've read so many books, and now I belong to a church that's primarily African American, and I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Are those like handcuffs?
Irons. Chains.
Oh man,
that
lady,
is the most retarded thing I've ever seen. Go ahead.
I mean, just the liberal white guilt is unimaginable. She took college courses about Black people. Like this is like a lower grade version of my best friend is Black. She's like, I studied you Blacks in college.
I studied you guys. Well, did you miss the part where their own people sold them over? I mean, the road goes. I belong to an African American church. It's like they probably don't want you there.
Gosh, man. Yeah, these poor old liberal ladies, man, are not doing well.
But like, so the woman is pathetic. That woman is absolutely pathetic, an absolute retard. Just the worst of the worst. Mm-hmm. That guy, can you imagine being there and walk up? What are you thinking? Let me put these shackles on you. What are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, that's the same motivation that like had people kneeling and taking a knee in the summer of 2020
washing their feet and
yeah.
That was some retarded shit there too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's I think we have some Rumble rants as we close out a great week. I'm going to call this a great week. I'm going full great week. Apparently we do have Rumble rants, but I did not open the Rumble rant thing. So let me scroll up to the top here. Why are we rating? That's not this show. That's last week's show or yesterday's show rather. Oh my gosh. So, folks, I'm sorry. I'm all over the place here. There it is. Sorry about that. All right. So I'm going to have to do it the old fashioned way, I believe, because I don't have them pulled up unless do it the old fashioned way. Smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. Miller Biz says, did you hear about the idea to change the name for ICE to NICE, National Immigration and Customs Enforcement?
That would be hilarious.
That would be so funny. Open up. This is nice. Wilson Chick, arrests coming. Thank God it's Friday. Two of my favorites, favorite manly men. Let's fucking go. Where we go one, we go all. Love Wilson's Chick, aka Mama T. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend. This is going to be a good weekend. D Dale D for the book fund. Oh yeah, we're trying to raise enough funds to get the original copy an original copy of Ingersoll Lockwood's The Secret Tales of Baron Trump.
Oh.
Because we don't believe it exists.
It might not.
We think it was created in 2017 and given a backstory that it goes back to Ingersoll Lockwood in 1899.
That is an important principle to remember, including when we are internet sleuthing, that the internet can be made to look like it happened a long time ago and just happened.
Yep. That was exactly my thought process. GG with attitude, with a tude, says, because it's a Chris Paul, CannCon and Chris Paul Friday.
Thank you.
And I think there's a couple more. I got to do it the old-fashioned way here. Mad Mr. Fox. Morning, gentlemen. It seems Chris is getting some extra hate lately. I know he doesn't care. I look to Chris when the rug is looking warm and fuzzy. He's my hard pipe hitting. Yeah, I'm not saying that. It's psyop. Is that JB's sock account right there trying to get me the N-word?
Dude, I don't even know that it's hate. It's just a bunch of people are really emotional and extremely triggered. And they're, the problem is that this adjustment period goes from our understanding of reality in a certain way throughout our lives to the acceptance that actually reality is much, much different than we thought it was. And we are not totally equipped to deal with it the way we thought we were. So I understand how that is psychologically difficult for people and emotionally difficult and whatever, man. It's people saying mean things in the internet. Who cares?
Yeah. Let's see. Shannon Inman. I know it's Shannon Inman, but I'm going to say Shannon Inman. Hat tip to GG with attitude because it's a CannCon and Chris Paul Friday. Thank you. Escape the Matrix 91. CannCon and Chris Paul Friday. Hype train. Let's go. Let's go. Do this every Friday. And then I can buy my Taco Bell on Friday night. Actually, my wife doesn't work at the Roundup anymore place or the bar. Excuse me. I shouldn't say Roundup. I could get sued. No, I'm going to war with them. Like I'm going to open a nightclub to compete with them because they piss me off. Yeah, you don't fire employees like that have been with you for 10 years.
I'll be your consultant, dude.
There you go. You want to come to Florida and own a nightclub? Let's go. There was one of tonight, tune in 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Why We Vote. Ash and I are going to be on with Cleta Mitchell is going to be joining us. She is one of the attorneys that was on the now famous Brad Raffensperger President Trump call. So we're going to have her on tonight to talk about elections, of course, and, some happenings in Georgia. We're also going to unpack the Venezuela testimony, the deposition. Everybody's been tagging me in that, guys. I've known about that since long before there was anything on social media. Just got to kind of vet it. That's all I can say. Vet it. You got to be really careful with information, and I'm going over it and I'm crossing my I's and dotting my T's. There we go. All right, Chris, what do you got coming up, brother?
I will be on DPH with John tomorrow night, and that's about it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. It was a good week, so I hope you guys go and have yourselves a great weekend. All right, do something cool. Stay frosty. Hit that thumbs up on the way out. And I'll see you guys tonight, 7:30 p.m.
Deodorant should do more than cover you up. It should protect you all day long.
Dude, the deodorant stick is legit. I like the mint one. And, you go work out and you kind of get you get funky if you work out. Dude, at the end of my workout, I'm sweating, shirt got all those sweat. I'm like, dude, I still smell good. I absolutely love it. If you guys haven't tried it, try it.
That's the difference with Soft Disclosure. No aluminum, no chemicals, just clean, natural ingredients that fight odor and keep you fresh through every workout, every meeting, every moment.
I've always struggled with the you can't use aluminum deodorant because you're going to die if you use it kind of thing, because all of the non-aluminum deodorant products suck pretty much. Yeah. This is different. This is all day. You're all day good, and you're not putting any of that disgusting chemicals right near your lymph nodes.
Soft Disclosure deodorant, real protection, real freshness, built on truth. Available in mint and lemon grapefruit. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Badlands for 15% off.